North South Connection podcast network fans. Welcome into Wrestling Warzone, a Monday Night Wars podcast retrospective series. I am JT, and joining me as ever is my partner Chad. Chad, how are you?
Doing good. The inevitable summer cold has called up to me.
Oh yeah,
A little under the weather, but
I've been hurting for weeks. I blame it on Grooney. Like Grooney was here, and I've been sick since.
Yeah, good candidate to always blame any problems you have.
Son of a bitch.
I mean, Caden went to camp, and then when he got back, he had a cold, so I'm pretty sure he gave it to me. But we powered through. They start school tomorrow, so it's already happened.
That is like mind blowing to me.
Best.
That you guys like every year when I hear like all you Southerners that I'm friends with are be like, oh yeah, school starts. I'm like we still got a whole month left, you know.
Yeah, I remember when you were talking to Aaron on the tier list about SummerSlam, and you were like, "Well, it was always you started school the next night." I was like, "Oh yeah, buddy, we're already deep in it." Like last year's SummerSlam
That would have been the night of, yeah.
Yeah, that would have been.
Yeah, no, it was always Labor Day weekend. You know, it's like that was it. Usually we'd start. A lot of times we started like the Tuesday after Labor Day, or we'll do like a few days before that and then have the weekend off.
I mean, where I live, there's the county and then there's the city school. And the city school's not starting back till August 14th, which is like the latest they've started ever. They changed a whole new calendar. So that was big news. So.
Radical changes down south.
Yeah, big time.
All right. Well, we got some radical changes coming here on the War Zone on the program, but also within our show. So welcome in. Here on this program, we go through the history of the Monday Night Wars. We're doing this both in a simulcasted video and audio format. So if you're watching on YouTube, welcome in. Be sure to like and subscribe if you are new here. We're also on our audio feed on any podcast application on North South Connection. We have a lot of content on both. Some of it's unique to each. So just subscribe to both. Follow us on social media. And you can keep up with what we got going on. So here on the Wrestling War Zone, we review and dive more than a review, honestly. We dive deep into Raw, Nitro, pay-per-views, clashes. We do weekly by week. We started with the 9/11/95 Raw versus Nitro. And here we are on January 2nd, 20th, 1997. So we've come a long way. And I think you and I both kind of discussed around Rumble 97, that last Raw heading into it, it feels like maybe the last of like the useless Raws, where every week now going forward on both programs, stuff is happening. Like we're in the real war now. Before you know it, WWF is going live head to head with WCW. Like the war could become serious here at 97. So we've decided to mix up the format a little bit on the show, Chad.
Yeah, so the January 27th Raw is the last 1 hour Raw. So we'll talk about this tonight's Raw, a lot's going on. Then probably the 27th is kind of like a lame duck. But after that, like you said, like we're off to the races, which we talked about. So we are changing the format because I think for both me and you, real time, when we talked about this, but a lot of the fun and the allure of the Monday Night Wars was the constant like back and forth, channel switching. I know, and it's weird, but like in '99 when I first got online, we used to have like a big AOL chat at school. And that was a big thing where we'd be like, oh, okay, hey, look at this. So and so's coming out on Nitro or so and so's coming out on Raw. Like let's all hone in on that. So what we're gonna try to do is go back and forth. So we have the format before has been we review one show and then we do the other show, but now we're gonna mix kind of real time, and we're gonna break it down into segments. To start, and we'll see how it goes. This is a test run, so be easy on us. But we don't want to make it too confusing and scatterbrained. But we do hope we can kind of inject some of the excitement. And this is really a good show to do it because I don't think we've had a two segments kind of go head to head with each other.
Yeah.
Or as exciting at the same time.
No, definitely not live like this. You know, like I was trying to think back to like the when Undertaker, Shawn, and Diesel got beaten down by the heels. Like if that was up against anything hot on Nitro, I don't remember. But I was
Yeah,
trying to think of any hot Raw angles. Like we haven't had a ton
no,
that would really meet the criteria. So this makes sense. And of course, so for 2 weeks of doing this, we'll have like an hour's worth of Raw versus Nitro, and then we'll do the back end of Nitro. But
right.
well, actually, when did they even go head to head fully? Not for a while, right? Because isn't Raw 8 to 10 still for a bit,
Yeah,
or is Nitro 8 to 10?
and Nitro's 8 to 10. I think Raw. We'll have to look at the observers though, because I know the timing it gets. I know for a while like Raw was 9 to 11 and Nitro was 8 to 10, but we'll
Right.
we'll we'll see when it is. But we may do that might be pretty cool too, where then it's like
We'll do
once
one
we
hour
get the
Nitro, the head
timing,
to
yeah,
head. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So we'll kind of have a bridge there where it's
Okay.
head to head, which would be interesting.
We'll see how tonight goes, and then we'll decide. But we'll dive in.
Let us know.
Any observer notes or anything before we hit?
Just a couple things we mentioned on the last regular episode before Royal Rumble when we talked about WCW, kind of in passing the stuff that was going on with the Nasty Boys.
Hmm.
I did get a good bit of clarity on that, both from the Observer and then also the Kevin Nash 1997 timeline on kayfabe commentaries. He goes pretty deep into this actually, where he talks about that. Yeah, it was a legitimate like they were supposed to have a brawl. Sags kind of got carried away and started throwing chairs. And then him and Hall really went after it, and it apparently screwed up Sags' neck, so he's legitimately injured
He's
and out of
done. I
action.
think this is like it for
He is
him. Yeah,
gone.
yeah.
So what Nash says was supposed to happen on the 113 Nitro at the Superdome was like they were going to publicly fire them,
Oh,
and it was going to be like a shoot. So it was one of those where like he was going to bring them out. Bischoff was going to bring them out. They were going to grovel for their job, and then they were legit going to be like let go. Obviously that didn't happen, but yeah, Sags, this is it, and Nash kind of pokes fun at him, like like he took this stand and like held out, and
hmm
for the insurance and all this, and then it was like he never did anything else
right.
in the wrestling business. So it's like great, great,
So
great
like, don't they show up in
business.
TNA as the Nasty Boys like for a little run at some point?
Yeah, well, I know Knobs is around when Hogan comes in. I don't know if
No,
Sags.
I feel like the Nasties had like a little run or something, not for long, but like I
Okay,
think they come back
okay.
in like when Hogan and Bischoff take over in 2010. I think they show up and do a little run, but for most whatever for all intents and purposes, Sags is done. I mean, Knobs is obviously sticks around until the end of WCW for the most part. So
Yeah, Knobs, stalwart of the hardcore division
yes,
when we get there.
him and Finley. All
Yeah,
right,
it looks like now Sags was with Knobs the January 4th,
I thought
2010.
so. Yeah.
But
Okay.
his cage match is wild because it goes from the 1-4 house show, 1-4-97 house show, to the next thing he does is that XWF in late 2001, the taping.
Ill-fated Hogan before he
Yeah,
left for WWE.
Hogan versus Perfect or whatever. Yeah.
All right, so we want to start with Raw for the first segment here.
Yes.
Okay.
Start with Raw.
All right. So January 20th, we got Vince McMahon, Jim Ross, and Jerry the King Lawler hyping some Royal Rumble clips. They got coverage from a local San Antonio newspaper, playing up the success and homecoming of Shawn Michaels to regain the WWF title in the chaos. Excuse me. The end of the Royal Rumble match. Gorilla Monsoon is here tonight to clarify who will face Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania. We get our opening animation. Then Vince, Jerry, and the King welcome us to Beaumont, Texas. The crowd is hyped. We get a lot of pyro. They discuss more about Gorilla in tonight's main event. Vince says that Psycho Sid suffered a slight concussion, just a slight one, and is out till Wednesday. Brett storms to the ring in his street clothes and has something to say directly to Vince. He said when he decided to come back, Vince promised him the opportunity to fight for the WWF title. Vince put him in the ring with Austin and said if he won, he'd be top contender. And now it's convenient that for some stupid reason, Shawn Michaels is put at ringside during his title match against Psycho Sid, and that he doesn't believe that was a coincidence. Shawn cost him another match. Brett says he was told it's okay, just go win the Royal Rumble and get another chance. So he entered, he clearly won, and deserves the title shot for WrestleMania and wants to know where it is. Vince kind of keeps looking up at him pensively. Brett says he's been screwed by Shawn Michaels, the boy toy, screwed by Steve Austin, screwed by the WWF, and screwed by Vince McMahon. Vince is up and pacing now. Brett says he doesn't want to make idle threats. And he doesn't want to look like it doesn't look like he's getting that title shot. So instead, I quit. Quits the promotion and leaves out through the crowd. Vince tries to calm him down. Brett walks away. We get "We Want Brett" chants. As soon as Brett's gone, out comes Steve Austin. The mic's not working. We hear some talk from the truck, your favorite WWF tech issues. Vince apologizes as Austin gets a new mic. He's fired up. Austin says Brett can bellyache and complain with the best of them, and all he's done is crying. He's coming back. He sits and talks about everyone screwed him, but the bottom line, when the going gets tough, the hearts get going. Back home. Brett can go back to Canada because the only person he can beat is his wrinkled up old man in the basement. And Austin's been jerked around for 7 years. He's supposed to face Sid tonight, but a 350-pound buffoon calls himself Gorilla Monsoon says Sid is home with a concussion. Sid may have a concussion and an ice pack, but he also has a yellow stripe up his back. And he has a bunch of bananas for Monsoon. He's going to tell him where to stick them. They can bring Undertaker's dead ass out instead, and he'll throw him out of the ring just like he did last night. Vince leaves and walks to the back. Jerry Lawler's cackling as Austin leaves as well. So, I mean, this was like a fire start. I would say since we started Raw, like, I mean, is this the best segment we've seen? Like, it's up there, right?
I would definitely put it. I mean, this whole Raw I like.
Yeah.
I think this segment, depending where you land on the Austin Pillman invasion, but as far as a like in arena excitement level, and then really from I would say from like a major league standpoint too, because now you have, I mean, we talked about like the crowd connection with Michaels, and he gets a good reception, but there was just like an electricity here, and you had like Brett and Austin and back to back with Vince like there in his blue blazer still getting talked down to. Yeah. Ross is there in the cowboy hat, like there too, and Lawler's loving it. Like he's going nuts, like happy that Brett's quit and yelling at McMahon. I think when McMahon walks off, he says like, "This is the greatest night ever." Or Brett quit, McMahon's walking away. But yeah, I mean, just a great like vitriol that Brett was showing in his promo, just great fire. He's fed up, and you can see it. You can see it like bubbling and bubbling, and with the way it worked, like, I mean, it really works well where he has a legitimate case, with the way everything's happened, and him talking about Michaels. I think that was an interesting piece, and I think that does show that we had the comment nice enough on the YouTube page that said, like, you know, the plan was for the ladder match or whatever, Brett versus Shawn at WrestleMania. And that plays here. This is one of my favorite. Like, you know, you have the Brett Usos when he says Shawn Michaels, the boy toy, the way he says boy toy.
This is an early version of Everyone Screwed Him too, because the more famous one is in March.
Yes.
But here we get the, you know, I've been screwed by Psycho Sid, I've been screwed by Vince McMahon. So he does that later in a more grandiose manner in a few months. But,
yeah, I didn't know if this is the one where he said like straight up, like, you know, this is bullshit or what. But no,
that's later. That's the one in
the first one.
Yeah, I think it's the Go Home to Mania. Is that one? So
okay. So we'll look out for that. But then, yeah, when he leaves and Austin comes out, microphone doesn't work, and he yells at the guy. He's like, "You gonna give me a working microphone, or what? To kick your ass?" Like, it's great. Like, this is just a great, frantic, incredible segment. Well, I mean, we have went through so many boring. Just like even the good stuff, like even the stuff that you would say like was solid. Like I really looked through our grades and looked at some of the Raws, and you know, like the build to WrestleMania 12, it wasn't bad, but you know, it was very traditional, you know, with the training montages, the face-to-face contract signing, stuff like that. Like this feels electric. Like this feels like something that can go head-to-head with the NWO, and they haven't had anything like that. So
maybe like, I don't know, like Mankind, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've had cool characters, but I still don't think I just still don't
Well,
think
just the
they
attack on
have.
Taker, the debut, I meant, like, felt kind of
Yeah,
wild,
I
but
mean that
not
was
like this. Yeah.
nice, but
This is the closest to the NWO we've had.
yeah,
I mean, yeah, with the chaos and I
yeah,
guess and the gun and the that. I mean, that felt chaotic too. But to your point, in the arena, um, I mean, it just sets us up for Brett and Austin being the catalyst and drivers of what's going to be like amazing content on
right.
Raw for the rest of the year. And this is it shows here that they're two super compelling characters, and Sean will get there. Like he's not really the most compelling guy right now, as we know, but it's coming as well for him. So
And it just, I mean, they're still having this Brett versus Austin dynamic. It's interesting if they would have went with the ladder match. Like, when would this have been resolved? Like, what was their
right.
plan for that? I don't know.
Yeah, could it have been Revenge of the Taker anyway? I mean, because they
Maybe.
fight there, so maybe that was the
Yeah.
plan, or maybe they were going to try and build it to SummerSlam. I mean, who knows? Like,
Yeah.
or King of the Ring, maybe.
Right.
That they had mapped out. But again, I'd have to. Like, I got to go back at some point and listen to Kevin Kelly's um, interview on PTB that we did for each of these years. Like, I don't know if he talked about when we did '97 what the plan would have been and where they would have went with it. I don't recall, but at this point too, they weren't really booking it like as much ahead. I think they were kind of trying to book on the fly a little bit more with the
Yeah.
live switch. And maybe they didn't really have much of a plan beyond Mania quite yet either.
Right.
Okay. All right. So why don't we head over to the Open of Nitro now that went up against this?
Yeah. So that is about a 10-minute segment
Mhm.
if you pull it up on the network. Same exact time when Nitro starts, we get a cold open. It goes straight to the arena. Pyro, Tony leading us in, says they're at the United Center, huge crowd. And then right after the pyro, we see Randy Savage jump the rail. So the crowd buzzes to that. Randy Savage comes out. He's in black with white lettering, so a new attire, kind of all black. Tony mentions we hadn't seen him since Halloween Havoc. He grabs
Mhm.
a chair, throws it into the ring, and then he gives his promo where he says, "Here's the deal. I've been blackballed, and I'm not leaving here tonight until I talk to someone that's got some major stroke. Nitro's a 2-hour show. I got no plans. I plan to stay here all night. And one other thing, I got a message for my ex boss, Eric Bischoff. You can kiss my ass," which of course gets a huge pop there.
Yep.
Some edge being shown on Nitro's side.
Mhm.
Larry, of course, is like, "I don't know if we can say that on TV." And
Oh no,
Tony
not
says, "Well,
ass.
that's come and gone." So there you go. And then Savage sits down in the middle of the ring on the chair to big cheers. So he basically does a sit in here. And you have another frantic scene where Savage is just sitting there. Tony's filling the air, saying like he doesn't know what's going to happen next. Is there any executive committee members in attendance? What's going to happen? Finally, after about like a minute or two, Chavo Guerrero's music starts up. He makes his entrance.
Looking
Uh,
very confused.
yeah, yeah, it's gonna be him versus Max. Uh, Craig,
It's a
Craig,
classic WCW thing where like these guys you never see all just happen to maybe have a match on a night where it's going to get interrupted. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
I mean,
Steve Dahl. Now we got Max. Like to roll out these guys. Like Max has never had a match on Nitro. I don't think. Maybe World War III is the only time we've ever seen
yeah,
him.
we have. I was hoping. I was trying to see when the last time we saw Max. Max's last match on Nitro. Do you want to guess what it was?
No, I mean it had to be like '95 sometime probably.
It's 96. It's the Scott Hall
Oh,
after
is it that
show.
same
Was
one?
the
That's cool.
last time we saw Max on Nitro. And we only see him one more time. He faces Diamond Dallas Page in like a month and a half. But yeah, so Chavo comes out. He kind of Craig Leathers sends word to Tony that they're trying to start the matchup. Larry says that he does like a man with grit, talking about Savage. Chavo's in the ring, like you said, looking very confused, talking to Savage. He's asking him to leave, and then he kind of progressively gets more annoyed.
Hmm.
Larry says, Chavo should talk to the referee. He's the one that's letting this continue. So Larry's kind of instigating
I
there.
love that Larry's still shook by the A word too. Like he
Yeah.
keeps saying it. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
Like it's really bugged him.
Yeah, he literally says like he's already said the A word at one point. So Larry keeps asking who has the stroke around here. Tony says, well, now he has learned there is some members of the executive committee that are in attendance. And Larry says, so you got 5 guys in suits running around in mass pandemonium back there. And then Savage kind of stands up to Chavo, attacks him to a pop, throws him over the top rope. Chavo takes a nice bump off that. He goes flying. That gets a big pop from the crowd. Savage sits back down in the chair, and here comes Max. Max makes his entrance now. He talks to him and gets
Like
hit
what
by
could Max be saying to the Macho Man? Like listen, buddy, this is my big chance. Like he's like trying to rationalize with him. Like Savage had no clue who the fuck this guy even is.
no,
So.
yeah. Yeah. So Tony says he's at wit's end. Savage threatened to use the chair on Max, so was really gonna beat him up. And then Savage starts slapping Scott Dickerson, the referee, throws him over the top rope. Larry mentions that he's been hanging around Dennis Rodman too much. Doug Dillinger gets in the ring.
Big Donuts Dillinger.
Boy, he has a rough night. We'll get to
Mm-hmm.
him, but he gets killed in this night. But he gets shoved down. Alex Wright comes in. He gets punched and kicked out. Tony says the cops should be coming soon. And then we have kind of the members of the roster that come down to the aisleway. So you
Mm-hmm.
have the Steiners. And one of my favorite moments was you have the Steiners and the amazing French Canadians. And Jock is like at the front of the line and he's just yelling, "Hey, we got a show to do. Get out of there. Get out
Come
of
on,
there."
we got an
Uh,
important show.
yeah, so he's yelling at that. And then in the middle of all this, we get an amazing visual
Mm-hmm.
where Sting just starts rappelling down from the arena from the first time. So we've seen him in the rafters, kind of physically like walk down, climb down. This is a straight rappel. Um, you know, with the Owen Hart stuff, it is what it is. But like as a visual on this night, it was really cool to see, and you can see like I mean it's a very thin like rappel because he
Mm-hmm.
just slides down, unhooks, and then he's walking to the ring. Um,
Scary in retrospect.
it's scary. It's very scary in retrospect, but it does look awesome, I will
Mm-hmm.
say. And especially when he's like aligned with the Chicago Bulls championship banner. That's like one thing I'll always remember, like him coming down over the banner.
Yep.
So he gets in the ring. Larry says he's with the NWO and he doesn't care what anybody else says. So, of course, Sting points the bat at Savage. Savage is sitting down again at this point. Sting kind of slaps the bat on the chair, and then Sting puts the bat at Savage's throat. That makes Savage stand up. Sting sort of gives him the shove with the bat, and then he hands the bat to Savage and turns around, giving his back to Savage to, do whatever. Savage doesn't attack Sting with the bat. He throws it back to Sting, and Sting catches it, which looked
Mm-hmm.
really cool too. Like that could have that was a little nerve wracking. Where if he drops it, that could look
Right.
a little lame, but he does a cool catch. And then they walk out together. So, and I mean, as we talked about with Raw, this isn't as uncommon that we get a crazy scene on Nitro,
Right.
but this was another great segment that was frantic. We hadn't seen Savage in 2.5 months, so
Mm-hmm.
that was exciting. It continued this stuff with Sting. There was a lot of intrigue on, are they teaming up? Are they NWO? Are they, what's going on? And Tony, I thought, was a really good narrator throughout all this, where even at the end, right as they go to commercial break, he says, "What the hell's going on?"
Right.
So he
Yeah.
like really leads it there.
We needed
Uh,
more info from Craig Leathers.
yes, so I give this one a thumbs up too, just like with Raw, and a great segment.
So a lot of good mystery too, because like we've been waiting for Savage to come back. There's been a lot of talk of him lately by Bischoff more and more, right? About Savage is trying to get
Yes.
in, trying to call back, and trying to get his job, like this and that, and he's been
Yes.
shitting on him. So like we were due for Savage to return. We had a little, contract stuff around November where we thought maybe he was going to show up at Survivor Series, and didn't. So why not do it here on the Chicago Nitro? And it shows you the one thing I will say with Nitro in WCW that they did or slash didn't do that WWF always did. They never seemed to put much stock in the go home night after. Maybe it's just my hazy memory and I'm not remembering correctly, but I feel like Raw has way more memorable go home and night after. And WCW tended to not care as much when they rolled out their big angles. Like
Yeah.
you could argue they should have maybe saved this for the night after Sold Out to kick off the stretch of Super Bowl. But I think what meant more to them was it's the counter programming the night after the Rumble, which is a live Raw, and being in Chicago in a big building to really kick things off like in a strong manner. So
Yeah. Yeah. I hadn't really thought about that, but um, they haven't been, I guess, as calendar focused
mhm.
just because they're live every week. I think
Right.
that helps. But
Well, we'll see if WWF follows that though too as they go live. I still think they have a focus on like the night after, although I do think they soup up the other weeks too. So maybe not as much, but so we'll see. I mean, this is you could argue this is a big go home, right, for them. So maybe I'm wrong with the clash in the way, but this is a big moment. It's a memorable moment. We'll see where Savage and Sting end up. As of right now, it looks like they'll be free agents and working together against both the NWO and WCW. So red hot angle, and it's a strong start to um, this Monday night for sure. Like if you're watching on this, where I was freezing January night, you were probably like, "Oh shit!" Probably Martin Luther King Day, I'm guessing. Maybe.
yeah, I would think so, which is also interesting. Yeah, because most people are out of school or most people off work or whatnot too. Yep.
The '97 was January 20th. So.
Yeah.
All right, let's head back over to Raw as we go back and forth here. So Jim Ross is talking about the huge crowd in San Antonio, 60,525, brings us to our first match of the night, and that is the British Bulldog and Owen Hart versus Doug Furness and Phil LaFon. After the break, we reset. Bulldog and Owen are in the ring. Vince is still gone. Clarence Mason is there. King and Ross catch us up. They hype up the rest of the show and what history we're seeing tonight with Bret Hart's actions. We get stills of Owen eliminating the Bulldog last night. Ross says this is non-title. Is Furnace and hypes up Furnace in the Fawn. The Fawn tosses Owen around, works him on the mat to get things going. Furnace comes in. It's a nice drop kick for two, throws Owen around. Ross is in full straight man mode here. Like the heel gimmick, I think, is finally done. The acerbic JR, even when he's not a full heel, that seems to be done. I think we're just in full on like classic play-by-play, info dump JR. So he's back. Owen gets a heel kick, tags Bulldog. King says it happens a lot in sports, or a bad call stands. And Ross says, yes, it could happen. Furnace gets two on a Rana. Bulldog bails to regroup. Ross says Taker has been fined his whole purse from last night for chokeslamming a referee. The champs start to cheat and double up as LaFon comes back into a flurry with a leg grapevine. King is still giddy about Bret quitting. Furnace and LaFon are in full control. Owen gets a blind tag. It's a missile drop kick. During the break, we get a hard sell for the Royal Rumble Encore at 8 p.m. We come back. The champs are in control. Ross hypes La Femme Nikita and says, see Nikita in the ring with that wimpy Robin Hood. And he says there'll be no bait and switch tonight. We're going to have 2 episodes of Nikita after Raw. So pretty good shots fired here from JR. Taking a dump on the Robin Hood stuff yet again, 2 weeks in a row. Furnace gets a double clothesline. He can't tag. JR is locked in here, bringing a much more manic vibe and energy to the show with his style. Furnace gets a crossbody for 2. Owen nails him with an enziguri for 2. Ross hypes up the big house show in Dallas this Wednesday. Says it'll be the return of Sid. We get MSG on Saturday. We got Philly on Super Bowl Sunday. The champions are in control. LaFon gets a tag, cuts through the champs with a flurry. Furnace comes in, hits a shoulder block on Owen, knocks him to the floor, but Owen hits LaFon with a slammy, and Bulldog finishes with a power slam. So that's a pretty good match. It's kind of the one we've been waiting for, Chad, with Owen and stuff on Raw to start the show. Just 4 dudes wrestling at a good pace and a clean style. I like Bulldog and Owen gutting it out. They get back on the same page just enough to cheat to win. Furnace and LaFon get hosed, so they have a reason for a rematch. And it's just good to see the tag division on track. Like, okay, we got some juice a little bit here. We talked about how this probably could have been at the Rumble. I think we could have used it there versus what we got on some of the undercards. So I think we'll stick to that point. I was surprised first Lafon lost, give it was non-title, but I kind of like that. It was made it different. You just non-title, you assume they're going to win and get the title shot, but no, they get screwed and Bulldog and Owen still steal the win. So I was okay with that too. I went 3 stars. So that was a very good opener.
3 stars for me too. Yeah, it was a good match, good solid match. Went through a commercial break, and I wouldn't say like an amazing reaction for anybody in there, but good enough. Excuse me. Furnace and LaFawn again, like they're interesting. Like that, I think this was the most they were able to like go with 2 guys to work. So from that standpoint, it was the most impressive, but still doesn't look like they have much like crowd support or connection with them.
The crazy thing is we're almost like done with their like I think
Yeah,
they're gone like a little after Mania. They get in the
they're
car
not here
accident
for a
and then
while, right?
they pop in
Um,
and out, but they're in ECW for most of '97, like doing the WWF war down there.
the I thought Owen was really good tonight. Especially once Furnace gets the hot tag in and he
Hmm.
gives Owen that shoulder block you mentioned. That was a great bump. Like
Yeah,
Owen flips completely out of the ring. I think in between like the bottom and middle rope from that shoulder block. It was just he really got over the power of Furnace. I did actually think Furnace looked better than LaFawn
hmm
on the on their side of things, and I would probably lean Crawford LaFawn as a higher ceiling worker overall. So that was a little bit of a reverse for tonight, where Furnace was better. But yeah, the finish was fun too with the slammy into the Bulldog power slam. I mean, we talked about Bulldog. I mean, Bulldog's pretty big. And he's bizarre. He's an
uh,
enigma uh, throughout 1997. So they're wanting him to pick up
mhm.
wins. He's probably not going to be taking too many losses.
Well,
Uh,
we're assuming he's still on track for Austin at
yeah,
Mania. I mean, at this
yeah.
point, we not no
So that's
reason not to
that.
think so.
That's our assumption. So you wouldn't expect him to take the pin. I guess Owen could have ate the pin, but
Hmm.
with them showing the clip from the Rumble too, they're still kind of playing up to like, is there any dissension between them two? So I like this. I mean, this wasn't like a slam dunk. Like we're still waiting on that like amazing Raw match that we
Right.
haven't gotten yet. Like that's like a 3.5 and above. But this was very good. I mean, this is as good as really most matches we've gotten on. I mean, this is in the upper echelon of stuff we've gotten on Raw, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
Um, 3 stars.
All right. So let's go back over to Nitro now.
Yeah,
What were the
just
segments for this?
they show like the Michaels entrance as they had to break from Rumble. So that ends that segment on Raw, and we go back to Nitro. We get some clips of Masahiro Chono joining the NWO.
Speak English, damn it!
That was like a month ago, which was
Yeah,
crazy. It felt more recent, but they showed the date. It was, I think it was the December
December 16th.
16th. Yeah,
Yeah.
so over a month. And that leads us into our first match, which is Chris Jericho versus Alex Wright. There was a couple of observer notes that were funny travel related. Chris Jericho was supposed to face Psychosis here. I know later on in the show, Bischoff says Psychosis gets subbed out for somebody else, but
Right.
it was supposed to be Jericho here. Psychosis had some travel issues. So Alex Wright gets plugged in here. Um, Very quick,
Hmm.
basic match. Some basic chain wrestling. Tony talks about the Bischoff interview on WCW Saturday Night, where he said like he wouldn't give Savage a contract and he would never wrestle in WCW. So he thinks that's why like Savage is all fired up and called Bischoff out.
Yep.
Tony says they're going to show that later, so I like that too. One, that makes stuff that's important still happen on WCW Saturday Night, and two, if you missed it, we still get to see it. But yeah, as far as the match itself, some at the ending is a lot of reversals. Jericho gets a forward roll and ends up winning. So star and a half. I don't think there's anything big here. Just Jericho keeps rolling. He's facing Chono at the pay per view, so that's well and good. And every time we see Alex Wright, I always enjoy that. So it was what it was for a 2-minute match.
I've been blackballed.
Blackball.
Yeah, it was a little disappointing because like this feels like it's something that could have been good on paper. Like I'm a big Alex Wright fan. So I think like this could have really been something with these guys here. They don't get the time, and it wasn't even scheduled anyway. So, is
Yeah.
what it is. Brief spurt. The crowd really wasn't into it either. Chanting boring, so whatever. Jericho, it's really just to give him a clean win, set up for Chono on Saturday
Right.
against the NWO and sold out. So star and a half for me.
Okay. This is also somebody's asleep at the wheel on Peacock because this does have Jericho's old music when he went.
Oh yeah, one snuck in.
Somebody snuck that one in. Because that match is so short, in the time that Furnace LaFawn versus Owen and Bulldog was happening, we also get the next match, which is Scotty Riggs versus NWO Sting. NWO Sting gets the B theme music.
Yeah, that made me laugh. Yeah,
That's gonna be fun to track. Like who
Oh,
gets the A music, who gets the B? Because we're
just
probably
wait until sold out. I think almost like everyone gets it except for the big dogs.
yeah. I would say like I don't know, like we'll have to see who we think the biggest name is that gets the B music. Probably
Yeah.
Buff, but that's
No,
something.
I think there's someone in sold out. I'm trying to remember now because I watched it.
6
This
would be one.
Yeah,
I'd be
it might be
interested
6. I
in.
think 6
Okay.
uses it sold out. So I think
Okay.
that surprised me that he used it. So
Yeah. So definitely be music for NWO's theme though. Tony's pushing Flair and Mongo. His return to Chicago. He says that's gonna happen in the first hour.
Yep.
So that's kind of again trying to keep you head to head, here. Sting yells to the crowd and gets booed. Riggs clubs him from behind, hits a back elbow and a drop kick. Larry has a very inventive new nickname.
He's very excited about it.
He says instead of Sting, let's call him Stink.
Stink.
Stink hits the stun gun to gain the momentum, charging the corner. Riggs gets the boot up. Some drop kicks from Riggs. A lot of drop kicks from Riggs here. So not much going on with this match at all until the end where Buff comes out. This is the first time. So he has Buff on the back of his jacket here. He's calling himself Buff, and this is kind of a new moniker here.
Yep.
So
Big debut.
So even Tony's like, Buff, what is that? Why is he calling himself Buff? So he's coming, Marcus is coming out and he says, I'm Buff, I'm the stuff, etc. He gets to the ringside area. Riggs hits the flying forearm. Buff charges in, and Riggs is able to escape, jumps over the guardrail. Him and Buff are kind of face to face. He slaps Buff really quick and then scurries away. And then the full job squad, the NWB team, comes rushing out into the ring. So we have Scott Norton, Nick Patrick, Vincent, Wall Street Bubba. The gang's all here.
The Stooge crew.
Yeah. And basically they demand that David Penzer announces Stink as the winner, which he does. And Larry's disgusted that Penzer folds and does
Larry wants everyone to stand up for themselves, but he never wants to be involved.
Show some grit.
Come on. David Penzer is going to take on 9 wrestlers.
9 members, yes. So yeah, I mean, as a match, it was a nothing. Riggs versus Bagwell, understand how that's kind of something they had to get over the hump. But yeah, I mean, I'm ready for them to fight it sold out and that to be the end of it. So I want a star and a quarter for the match. It was what it was.
Yeah, just a star for me. I mean, it's really nothing doing. It's just more about introducing Bagwell as Buff and prepping for the throwdown of the American males at sold out. So, I mean, I like that they're doing it because it's kind of going to be Bagwell's first step up the ladder, and he's going to put Riggs behind him and the males behind him, and then kind of seal that part of his career off. So I like that they're doing it. So this is a fine opening hour throwaway segment.
All right. Now we'll head back to Raw.
All right. So like you mentioned, we get that clip of Shawn's entrance. So we head right back to the ring as Farouk takes on your boy, Bart Gunn. The entire nation is out there, led by PG-13 rapping. Great menacing vibe in place as the nation stomps out. Farouk is still intense with the female associate. He's kind of yanking her around as she's disrobing him. We get clips of the big power bomb through the table from the Rumble. Bart marches out, gets a little pop, and we are set. JR gets another Robin Hood joke in as Bart starts with a flurry of offense, controls the arm. After the break, Farouk is in charge. He's hammering away, gets a bit of a sloppy spine buster. JR and King recap what we've seen so far and yesterday, as well as Farouk chokes and grinds away. We get some help from PG-13. JR says he's sure Bubba likes Raw after King makes a Bill Clinton joke. Farouk is aggressive in his strikes, alternates with a chin lock as JR talks about Brett fighting through some crisis of late. Farouk goes up top but whiffs as Bart gets a brief flurry. JR says Gorilla Monsoon is trying to sign Ahmed Johnson versus Crush for next week. Bart gets a bulldog, but PG-13 makes a save. Bart goes out to clean house, but Farouk clobbers him. Crush shoves him in the ring, and Farouk almost murders Bart with a Dominator. It's getting a little shaky for Farouk to be doing this move right now. Like I think he's just a little out of shape and he's kind of gassed when he's doing it, but he's almost hurt a couple of guys, and Bart really took a nasty bump. I thought as a TV match, this was fine. Bart was game as always in there. Farouk had some pep in his step tonight. The nation at ringside adds that chaos, and JR is on fire. Like he's added so much energy to this show. Nearly an ugly finish, but the nation continues to overwhelm. So I went 2.5 stars in the match. And just really quickly after, the nation is leaving as Vince McMahon and Gorilla are heading to the ring. So that's kind of how we wrap that segment, going to break. But what'd you think of the match, Chet?
I didn't like the match. I would a star and a half. Farouk is not looking great. And I didn't think this was one of the more spirited Bart Gunn performances we've seen. Um, they're really put over the Pearl River Plunge from the Rumble. I thought that was good that they did that, but still, with the nation so far, it's interesting, but it's one of those weird things where it's kind of like I need some sort of direction, like besides them eliminating Ahmed, which also kind of just happened. It's like what is the goal here, and why is there all these people? Like what is happening? And it feels like they're dancing up to the line of like saying like this is a gang and not. So there's still some of that going on as well. It's just not something that's resonated with me. And then you add to that Farouk's actual in-ring acumen, and it's this was the only segment that was a struggle for me on the Raw. Dominator looked awful.
I think he's just really out of shape.
left him.
I don't know if he's injuries broken him down or if he's just like no cardio. He was fine in ECW in that little run, but that was like 94. So I don't know what he was doing over that year or so, but he doesn't seem to be in much ring shape at all. And I think he knows it because later, eventually down the line, he like gets himself into like insanely awesome shape, like during the Acolytes era. So I think he knew maybe, but I think he's bigger than he normally was, and it's affecting him in the ring.
Well, he's older too. I mean, you got to think too. Like, I mean, he's not ancient at this time, but he's 36.
Right,
so
yeah.
it is one of those where it's like you're not as young as you thought you were.
Plus the football miles on it too.
Yep. So overall, this wasn't, like I said, this was the one thing I kind of struggled with.
Yeah.
All right. Ross does at the end say no one can do a pay-per-view spectacular like the WWF, which is pretty humorous because it's like,
given the last 12 rolling months of pay-per-views.
You've gotten beat about 9 times out of 12 in the last 12 months, probably. Back to Nitro. We have the WCW Saturday Night promo. Not much is described. We have Arn Anderson, Mongo, and Benoit in a 6-man tag. And then our main event is Harlem Heat versus Public Enemy. We got a clip of Flair at, I guess, a skate around for the Chicago Blackhawks there on the road in Buffalo. But he's here to talk to Bob Probert. I was not familiar with him. Had to Wikipedia him. He's a goon enforcer guy. Had a little bit of a legal issue and passed away after at a young age. So there we go. But Bob Probert says, he's going to walk with the Horsemen if he was in town, but he has their support, and that gets a woo from Flair. Now the big thing is Larry, of course, craps on every other athlete.
Everyone sucks. Don't forget, only
So he
wrestlers.
says Larry calls him a little skinny hockey player, which was humorous because he towered over Flair in the interview there. So he's probably like 6'4". Um, that leads us to our tag match. An interesting tag match on paper. It's Arn and Mongo, baby, versus Eddie Guerrero and Double J, Jeff Jarrett. Big boos from Jarrett from the Chicago crowd. Tony talks about this is the biggest crowd to see in an event in Chicago in 1997. And it's like, all right, like it's an impressive crowd, but we're 20 days in. Like, let's chill out. And Mongo gets a great reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets a homecoming reaction. Jarrett and Arn start off, big back elbow from Arn, but he misses an elbow drop. Larry calls him a true enforcer, unlike Bob Propane. uh, Stink and Propane. Jarrett gets a crossbody coming back into the ring. Eddie finds himself in the Horseman's corner, but is able to fight out. And then Arn turns and points at Mongo, asks the crowd if he wants to tag in. He does, to a great reaction. And him and Eddie Guerrero, that is
Mm-hmm.
a pairing I never thought I'd want to see. But they have a great 1 to 2 minute segment here
Yeah, it was fun.
where Mongo gets a nice charge on him, and Eddie's just like pinballing around him.
Mm-hmm.
So Eddie really works well in being able to make Mongo look powerful and forceful in his moves here. So when he power slams Eddie up, that gets a huge reaction, and then Eddie's actually able to reverse it into an arm drag and a drop kick. But on the outside, Mongo slams him into the railing. So that was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Now we see some crappy WCW production, so I'll crap on them. Where all we see is like this wide angle of Eddie Guerrero running to the back, and we're like, what happened? Did he, get sick? You're unsure what goes on. Larry, in fact, calls him a coward for jolting to the back. We learned from Tony that Six apparently had come out and was on the ladder again, teasing him like he's been doing in the last couple of weeks. So that's why Eddie goes chasing after him, but we totally missed Six. We don't see him at all.
Right.
Arn Anderson has Jeff Jarrett in the Boston Crab, and then we get our finish where Deborah throws in her sash as kind of
Mm-hmm.
like a substitute for the towel, and they count that. So I don't know why the opposing.
Yeah, it's silly. Yeah.
It's a little bit of a weird finish, but and then Arn is like perplexed looking at the sash. Mongo, in a great moment, grabs the sash from Arn's hands and puts it back on Deborah. But yeah, I mean, overall, I enjoyed this a lot. I mean, I didn't think this wasn't a very long match at all, but for the 4 minutes, we had a lot going on here. And I thought it was entertaining. And Mongo got a great reaction, so
Mm-hmm.
that's cool. So I went 2.5.
Yeah, I went two. Mongo was super over. The tackle, just crunching Eddie, was great. The press slam, like you said, Eddie really worked hard to put him over here in his hometown. The RN Spinebuster was cool. The finish is kind of silly. It doesn't make sense. It's confusing, which is a WCW plague. These confusing finishes they tend to do. But it really was more about the weekly Horseman argument than a match. Even though on paper, like if you could put this on Clash or pay per view and give it like 15, like it's a really cool mix of guys. Like I think this
Yeah.
could have been something that could have been like a little hidden gem if they had like 15, 16 minutes for these four to really let loose. As it is, again, it keep things cooking. Jarrett's still kind of in the mix with the Horsemen, causing some problems. And I believe, like we had talked about previously, we're nearing the end for Arn in the ring, right? Is this one of his last?
Yeah, he has a match next week, and I think that's it. As far as what we'll see of him, so and, unless we do Thunder in 2000,
Right.
it's the one match.
Maybe we'll get there.
Yeah,
That'll be the B team. We'll find someone to do it, and then we'll play the music.
yeah.
Wrestling Warzone B team covering Thunder and SmackDown. If anyone's interested, let us know.
Then it's our weekly interview time with the Horsemen. As they're walking up to the interview area, Larry says that Deborah must be blind, looking at Mongo McMichael. So that was a pod shot of him. And Ric Flair's here, so he gets his entrance. He comes out. He almost slips on the entranceway in a funny moment. Benoit and Woman come out too, so the gang's all here. Flair says that in the city we should be tearing down. He's got to tell it like it is. The Nature Boy is on the mend. He's putting his body back together so he can be a real life fighting horseman. But when he looks at what's going on with Mongo and Deborah and Christopher and Woman, I love how he kept calling him Christopher like it was
Christopher.
It sounded like Tony. And he says he looks in the eyes of the enforcer. They're not the unit they've been in the past. When he's with Arn, we take care of business before knocking the women down. Christopher, Mongo, let's be horsemen first. So this
horsemen
is kind of
first. He says horsemen.
Yes. Arn says this is a man's game. And he holds up the four fingers and says, "This is the greatest thing you can ever aspire to be. The horsemen will endure as long as Flair and Anderson are a part of it." Then Mongo gets his, fun in the sun. He says, "Chicago, Mongo's home. I've been a Super Bowl champ, and let me tell you one thing, I'm proud to be a horseman." So there he goes, short and sweet from him. Deborah is Miss Illinois, which gets some boos from the crowd, which was funny. And then
she knows what it's like to be a winner.
Yeah, she knows what it takes to be a winner, and what they were doing to Jeff Jarrett is not what winners do. So sticking up for Jeff. And then Benoit says Mongo's a winner at football and Deborah to pageants, but they're standing with four other winners in pro wrestling. Let's keep things in perspective. And then I thought this was a good, again, kind of like how he did with the Halliburton the week before. This is a good return serve for Mongo, where he mentions, well, hey, I had Jeff Jarrett down for the count, and the last two times you wrestled him, you didn't. So they kind of leave it as that as everybody walks off. Deborah grabs the microphone one more time and says she don't want to be mean to say anything, but that woman is a big-hearted lady and she has the hips to match. Of course, Gene is appalled for that. And Larry mentions that she said Illinois.
But he says it like in a great way. Like as they're going to break, he kind of slips it in. He's like, she said Illinois.
So, I thought at least like here Flair wasn't as aloof as he'd been the last couple times we've seen him.
He was more focused here. Yeah, he wasn't
just
Jerry Seinfelding it. He was like involved.
Yeah, he didn't want to just like get drunk and party. So I enjoyed this as another Horseman interview. Actually, the last 2 weeks I've enjoyed them more. So
they've been. I mean, I'll be honest. Like I didn't remember this much Horseman stuff like during this time period, but it's been dominating the airwaves. So we'll see where it goes. I mean, the Jarrett thing has been going on since like October. We've had zero movement. I guess that's the one critique you could have of it. Like when did Flair, didn't he advocate for him before Halloween Havoc? Like when he was going to fight the Giant or whatever?
Yeah.
I mean, we're like on 3 months now of kind of Jarrett hanging around, Deborah kind of horny for him, Flair not really doing anything about it. Like that's the one thing I would say. I mean, but I guess it's similar to DDP. Like that was the same long, slow. It's like instead of long-term booking, what they seem to do is they put a pole in the sand down the line, and then they just like march toward it however they want to get there. So in their minds, they may be thinking, okay, we're going to solve the Jarrett thing and march it uncensored. So until then, just kill time and then figure it out as we get closer. That's how the DDP thing felt. It was like, okay, in January, we're going to have DDP, spurring the NWO. So until then, we're just going to kill week by week. Like it doesn't feel like it's mapped out. It feels more like they throw a peg in the sand and then kind of get there and then worry about it later. All right. So Let's head back over to Raw. Vince McMahon brings out Gorilla Monsoon. He gets booed. Gorilla says he's upset to hear Bret Hart quit, and he hopes that he's somewhere he can hear him and accept his invitation. Gorilla says a travesty occurred in the Royal Rumble. Steve Austin was declared winner, and he can't change that. Referees' decisions are final. The record books will state that Steve Austin won the 1997 Royal Rumble, but if Austin thinks a tainted victory entitles him at a crack at the world title at WrestleMania 13, he's got another thing coming. Gorillas put together a 4-man elimination, no disqualification match, and the winner will face the champion at WrestleMania. The 4 men in the match are The Undertaker, Vader, Steve Austin, and Bret Hart, meaning it's Steve Austin and all the guys he illegally eliminated from the match. He hopes that Bret will accept this offer, and we find out the King is not happy. He's pissed off at ringside. Ross confirms that match will happen February 16th at In Your House in Chattanooga. Austin comes out to the ring. He says Bret Hart quit, so that match isn't going to happen. He says before Gorilla yanks out his carpet, there's no instant replay rule, and he sits there and calls himself a gorilla, but all he does is hee-haw like a jackass. There's no way Austin should be in the match. He threw 29 pieces of trash out of the ring, but he'll do it if he has to. And when he finishes those guys, he'll throw Gorilla around as well. Austin gets a Gorilla's face. Vince steps between them. Bret Hart is back through the crowd. He gets a pop, gets in the ring, and accepts the offer. He wants to fight right now, and him and Austin have a big brawl in the aisle. To wrap another great segment. I mean, they're figuring it all out here. The studs are driving the ship. They're like, we got Bret, we got Austin. Just let them go do their thing. I thought Austin was awesome here, just shit talking Gorilla. Gorilla's great in this role because he can speak so like clearly and concisely and explain the storyline. Right, he's been doing it for years as an announcer. So like that part of it is really well done. He gets everything across clearly. It makes sense. Bret comes right back. The only thing I thought was a little weak, I don't know if it's weak, but like Austin going from like, I'm not doing it, I shouldn't have to do it, but I'll do it anyway. like that was like a quick, I know what he was trying to do, but it almost came off as like kind of weird. But I know they were trying to just not rush through it, but get through it. But it's great when he calls him a jackass and everything was great. So this is another, these two bookend segments about Bret and Austin have really dominated this Raw, and they've both been great.
Yeah, the Gorilla interview was good because he had like authority, and then Vince was right there with him, kind of leading him along. I did like Austin yelling at him, and I like the way they did that from a visual standpoint, where Gorilla was on the floor, so like Austin was in the ring standing over him, and Vince was kind of like retreating back to the announce booth too. So it again showed like the chaos and that the show's format was kind of in complete disarray. But yeah, overall it was exciting, and to have a big main event for the next pay-per-view, it's good sounding main event too. So another good segment there. Excuse me. All right. While that was going on, we get the WCW Saturday Night Eric segment. So this is the old school. The preceding announcement has been paid for by the New World Order, black and white, in the studio. Eric Bischoff segment. It's filmed by Elizabeth. She has a camcorder that she's filming, and Eric is laying on a Harley Davidson. He says it's not easy being king. Two of the most powerful organizations in the world of wrestling, the NWO and WCW, which I thought was a funny line. He sees what's happening in our industry. Hall and Nash have been devastating to everyone. Hulk Hogan's his personal hero. He actually bought him this bike that he's sitting on. And then he asks Elizabeth, he's like, come a little closer to CN. And then he talks about Ric Flair. He says it's been emotionally tough seeing him trying to mend his broken carcass. Then he throws it on to Piper. He says he tried to tell Roddy Piper to, go back to his farm in Oregon, but he didn't listen. He fakes crying, and he says, when you are the king, you pick who you ride with. He knows what Randy Savage wants most, Elizabeth and his hair. He cracks up about that. He talks about how careers have come and gone, and it's the ability to manipulate people that he enjoys. And he asks Elizabeth if she'll agree to that. And then he says the NWO will go on always because it's for life. So, I mean, I thought Eric was a pretty good sleazeball here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he goes through everybody. So he really runs the gambit of, Flair,
He
Piper,
says Flair's trying to come back, but it's over for him. No
yeah,
chance. He's done.
mend his broken carcass. So it's a lot to go through, but I thought this was a good segment too. Like I thought Eric is slimy, and the way he was wanting to be presented, he was here. Like this
Right.
is we talked about cool NWO, and then you have heel NWO with Hogan and Eric, and this is firmly that. Like this is slime ball NWO.
Yeah, and the King stuff is like, it's a little heavy-handed, but it's fine. Like I think that's gonna be a little thing for a bit. I don't know if that's a shot at Lawler or not. Probably not. Maybe a little one, because he does say it quite a bit. I think in the weeks to come, um, calling Giant a big idiot, and the
Yeah,
most important piece of this isn't what he's saying. It's the presentation and how different and cutting edge and unique it looks. Like that to me is what really stands out about it, and the way they go about it. So I really like that. It feels different. It feels fresh. It feels awesome to watch like this different presentation on the wrestling program. So different approach to usual Bischoff. He's more control and confident. He's not as grandiose and over the top. He's still kind of funny and chuckling a bit, but he's not as like, way over the top. So, but no, it was a good segment for sure. And way to nearly wrap hour one. We're almost at the end there, but we are going to wrap Raw here with our final segment. We get an ad for Full Metal, the album. And then we head to our main event, which is Stone Cold Steve Austin taking on The Undertaker. After a break, Hart is being kept at bay by officials while Austin stalks the ring. Taker stalks out, and now him and Brett throw down in the aisle. There's chaos. Hart jumps Taker, but Taker fights him off and batters him around ringside. The crowd is buzzing. Back in the ring, the bell sounds, and Austin stomps away, but Taker fights right through it. He's beating on him. Vince says Taker's ribs are hurting from hitting the guardrail last night, but he's on fire in the ring. Austin fights back and uses his usual tenacious attack. He cranks a chin lock as King keeps trying to shout out to him to work to the injured ribs. Taker hits a mule kick, but he turns into a stunner, but Austin can't capitalize, and it's still weird. Like the stunner's been around since like May, and it's still not that lethal finish yet. Like it usually
yeah,
finishes, but it's to see it almost as like, oh, we just can't take advantage, right?
right.
So not quite there. Vader and Brett are having a pull apart backstage. Their wrestlers are separating them. One, I don't know if you caught this, but was one of these guys Pitbull too? I don't know if you saw it. It looked just like him.
Yeah, no. I know who you're talking about, and I didn't know. I was like, who is this? Might have been. I'm not sure, but
I don't know. I
yeah,
don't know if he would have been maybe a tryout where the Pitbull's having like a tryout or something on a dark
maybe.
match, something like that. I'm trying to remember in '97 where they were. That was during the like Pitbull ones? Yeah, because isn't the first pay per
Yeah,
view is April, right? And that's
yeah.
Pitbull 2 versus Douglas.
Douglas. Yep.
So maybe they could have been doing something. It looked just like him. I thought it was him for sure.
Let
But
me
anyway,
see if Meltzer, while you finish, I'll
yeah.
see
See
if
if he or
Meltzer.
check their maybe the wiki has something. I don't know, but it definitely looked just like him. After the break, Austin's in control. He hypes Vince hypes this weekend shotgun in New York City. Undertaker crotches Austin on top, tries a superplex. Austin pelts the ribs. JR hypes La Femme Nikita, takes another shot at Robin Hood. He just really does not like the Robin Hood thing. Taker gets a running clothesline. Vader and Paul Bearer come out, and that draws the DQ. Taker nails him with a choke slam. Austin jumps Taker, Brett's out, and all four throw down as the crowd is hyped. Vince clearly states Brett is still in the WWF as Taker hits a tight back suplex on Vader, and we get a long brawl to sign things off. I thought this was fine overall. I would have hoped for something a little hotter, but it had the TV format. We get the fans home happy, set the table for In Your House. We saw Taker expand his offense. Ross really pushing Taker's attitude. The finish was fine. It adds heat to Final Four, ending with all the studs brawling, and that's what the show was based around all night. What I thought was interesting is we had no Shawn Michaels at all in the building here tonight. After winning the world title in his hometown and staying in Texas, I guess if he's sick still, but you'd think he'd at least come out and do something. But overall, I think this is a top tier outing across Raw. Energy and excitement is there, and a really good follow up to the pay per view. I went 2.5 on the match itself, but I enjoyed it as a segment.
Yeah, they I still this is such an interesting pairing. Like we've had a couple of matches on Raw already. I think I remember liking them a little bit more. This I thought would be an intense brawl. Just based on what we saw Taker have with Vader the night before, and the fact that like Austin and Brett were really going after it. But it wasn't that. Like I mean, it was fine for what it was. I went 2.5, 2, or 2 3/4 actually. I was a little bit higher than you, but still, like I kind of thought like, okay, we may have like a really hot, like heated brawl between these two, and we didn't. But it was more about the after effect where you had Vader come out and then Austin and Brett really like fighting in the aisleway, and that was dynamic. So that was a really good way to close us out, and it wasn't much about the match itself, which is funny considering who it is. Like a year from now, like this is main event of their second or
Hmm.
third biggest show. But and even in a few months, it main events a B pay-per-view. But as for this show, this was kind of like a vehicle for them to have the ending schmoz with all the final four members brawling with each other, um, to end a very chaotic scene.
Yeah, I googled too. I don't see anything about the Pitbulls getting a tryout. Maybe he was just.
Uh,
I mean, it looked just like him. If it's not him, there's a guy out there that looks like him quite a bit. But
yeah.
do you want to do the Raw awards? Or you want to do all the awards at the end?
We can go ahead and do the Raw awards.
Okay.
Get those out of the way.
All right. So, match of the night, I had the opener,
Yep.
Furnace of the Fawn, Bulldog and Owen.
Me
The
too.
moment, I don't know. I went with Brett quits and returns. I guess it's like all that shit. It's hard to narrow down, but
Yeah, I mean, my favorite thing was the opening 10 minutes, so I
yeah.
went with that.
MVPs, I just give Hart and Austin co MVP. I mean, they were equally as great on this night. It was hard
You
to pick.
going you gonna be copping out and doing that all year?
Oh my god, they're both so good. All right, if I have to pick, I would pick Austin tonight, only because I
Okay.
like the shitting on Gorilla. Was really funny, and him, and I just thought he had the sharper one-liners, like when the tough get going, the hearts get going back home, like that. I love that line. That's a great line. You hee haw like a jackass, all that stuff.
I went the other way. I went
Oh,
Brett.
Brett. All right, I'm putting
Yeah.
it in as Austin, so you can't be shit. Shots fired. I mainly went Jr. shitting on Robin Hood and the bait and switch. I mean, he did it
Yeah.
like four or
Hey,
five
that was the
times.
only thing. Yep.
Yeah. No debuts, right?
Pitbull too.
Pitbull too. I don't know if the Nation had any debuts in there, but
No, I
uh,
mean D'Lo was with them, but again, not named.
right.
And we'll wait till they actually start naming the guys before we'll throw them
Only
on.
dropped angle I had is heel Jr. I think it's done here for the most. Like, I mean, he's just in full on play by play Jr. from here on
Did you
out. I think.
mention they announced Vader? Paul Bear was Vader's manager. That's not a dropped angle, but that was a new development. They did mention that, so
That it's
that
official from the Rumble.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Final grade, I went 6.5 out of 10. I mean, I think it was a very good episode. I think it's short of like the upper tier stuff, but we had a really good match. We had some classic segment in there, sort of through line, but I think in ring and some of it like still kind of pulled it down a little bit.
yeah. So, like I said, I did a good bit of research. Um, this was kind of like where I think my ratings betrayed me. Because I mean, for me personally, I tried to convey and I talked about it with the Austin invasion, home invasion. That I mean, to me, is just like a wrestling show, and what I like in pro wrestling. Like I like this show better. But for a rating standpoint, I am gonna go 7 out of 10. But I think this is one of the stronger Raws we've seen. Like I'd put this in the handful of those strong Raws throughout the year and 4 months we've covered so far. Like I can't think of more than maybe 4 or 5 Raws that I would have ahead of this at this point. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was strong. The couple match. Like I was a little down, more down on Taker Austin. I think which hurt, and then the Farouk match. But yeah, overall, it's still very good work considering where we've been. It's might as well be an 11 out of 10.
It was also helped. I mean, again, we say it like it's helped by being an hour too.
Yes,
That's
yeah.
one thing that is helped. Like that's it's gonna be interesting. Like as both shows get to 2 hours, because we have had some great nitros
Hmm.
still in the 2 hour format. but it's more of a hurdle because I
Yeah,
mean, when you fail 2 hours, like you got to be good and you got to have stuff going on.
right.
So
Yeah, we'll see. Because Raw, I mean, they go to 2 hours soon, and they don't
mhm,
have the depth for a little bit. Like, so,
no,
like, we'll see, like,
no,
how they fill it. But I think they fill the time by having the stars on constantly through the show, from my
right.
memory. Like we know WCW has been a little not as much in that realm. We get more of it now with the NWOs ramping up. We see them a lot, but um, from my memory, we just see Austin, Brett, the Hart Foundation take like we just see them like fucking 5 times a night until the roster thickens up. So we'll see if that holds true. That's my memory of it anyway.
All right. So the first hour of Nitro closes out with Ultimo Dragon versus Dean Malenko. This is kind of a bridge match for them as they're
Hmm.
fighting the next night on the Clash. We saw it at Starcade. Larry gives his Socrates moment here where he says Napoleon had its Waterloo and the NWO will have sold out. So a very philosophical pondering thought from Larry there. Um, this was again another abbreviated match. There's a lot of quick matches on Nitro tonight. This one only gave about 4 minutes. Like it was fun while it lasted, but it was 4 minutes. So some nice pin reversals. Ultimo gets caught climbing up to the top. We get a nice Rana from the top by Ultimo Dragon. Dean comes back with some aggressiveness and some viciousness. But then Ultimo's able to lock in the La Magistral Cradle and get the win. Uh, like I said, pretty quickly, like in around 4 minutes. I did think one strong thing on this was Tony filled a lot of the time here shilling the Clash, which I thought was good.
Hmm.
So giving that the hard sell. And I mean, overall, this was fun, but again, it was 4 minutes, so not much of a ceiling. I went 2 3/4 though. I mean, for 4 minutes, it was very enjoyable.
Yeah, Tony's really in on the it being the WCW World Title, not the NWO World Title, and how last week was a fiasco. So we're excited for Sold Out. I don't. I just don't get all the express line rushing on this show. Like, why not just cut a match or two and give these a little more time? 4 minutes for Dragon Malenko feels like a why we bothering when they're going to fight the next night. So
Yeah,
it's fun for what we got, but they're going to fight tomorrow anyway. And now you have Dean losing clean. Like, just do something different. Like, have them brawl for once and get double DQ to set up tomorrow night. So I don't know. I only went 2 1/4. Like, it was fine. I think it just bugged me that they did it in a half-assed way, and then they're gonna fight again tomorrow anyway. Like this is like, so why do you even care about this match if they're gonna have to fight tomorrow for the belt anyway? So I would have made this. I just would have mixed the matches up a little bit. Maybe do Alex Wright versus Malenko and Jericho versus Drag out of something
yeah,
where they're not fighting 2 nights in a row for no reason. We do get the Pet Boy Power Pin of the Week as well here. So.
um, yeah. I mean, I think from like a counter programming standpoint, they might could have done Sullivan's Benoit's brawl here.
Right.
Um, I do wonder if they kind of just hypothetically did want to throw out the cruiserweights right at the end of the hour to see how it would
Yeah.
line up
The
on a
bridge.
quarter hour against like a Raw main event.
Again,
So
I'm fine with that theory. To me, the bigger issue was wasting Malenko
yeah,
Dragon.
I mean, I think those two guys is tough, but so I mentioned Psychosis didn't have his gear or no, Psychosis wasn't there. La
Right.
Parka made it. He's supposed to fight later on. Squire David Taylor gets subbed in for him. He didn't have his gear or his mask. It was still in transit at the
But
airport.
again, then don't do filler for these matches. Just cut some and have longer matches. Like they could have cut those two, or keep Jericho right. Cut the whatever David Taylor one and just lengthen this and lengthen that a little bit, and maybe they're a little bit more to it. It's just
Yeah,
I don't see the point running these guys out for 4 minutes when they're going to fight the next night anyway. Like it seemed pointless.
yeah. I think it. I mean, I'm giving it a little bit of benefit of doubt, but I do think it was more like a rating derivative to
Yeah,
see.
I
But
guess.
we'll see. And Mysterio's hurt too, which hurts. So there's that. And then we start off with hour number 2. Uh, this is like the first time they've actually shown the announce booth is right at the beginning of hour number 2. So Tony's wearing a Chicago Blackhawks jersey. think it may have been Chelios. I'm not sure, but he looked kind of funny. Big Weasel chant for Bobby. They recap the Savage stuff from the first hour with some narration where Tenay says in the 60s sit-ins were in vogue. Bobby mentions that Sting never says a word to him. Do you have anything else to add on that?
No, just a recap, really.
Okay.
And the
Then
sweet Blackhawks jersey. Clark Griswold to be proud.
yes. So then we get our now this is a match that probably could have been cut. So we get
No, Jacques we needed to get this match in. We got a show to do.
This I don't get the benefit of the doubt. This is weird. So it's Jacques Rougeau versus Steven Regal. Now Jacques calls Illinois a bunch of hillbillies, which I thought was a little odd. I wouldn't associate the state of Illinois as having a lot of hillbillies, but okay. Tony laughs at Jacques now knowing the words to Canada. And I mentioned here, like, Regal was one of the last ones in World War III.
Mm-hmm.
And they've kind of dropped the ball with him. Like, not much momentum at all since then.
No, he's done nothing. I mean, he's TV champ, but, like, he's rarely on. I don't think he wasn't on Starrcade.
Now this is a bizarre match where Regal, I don't know if they're trying to put him babyface here. I mean, he's a babyface throughout this match.
Yeah.
So very quick work together. Regal fires back with some uppercuts. Parker slugs Regal on the outside. They do this thing where, like, Parker trips Regal up one time. He goes for it again, and Regal lies to it and stomps on Parker's hand.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then Jock calls for interference, and Parker, physically gets in the ring and ends up whacking Jock, and that gets the bell for, like, the DQ, and then Regal gives an atomic drop to Parker, and he goes flying, and Regal does. I always find, like, his weird, like, baby face, like, fired up. It's always it's a little weird. I mean, he had a decent reaction, but this was just bizarre. So I went a half star. I mean, it was a 2-minute match.
This was terrible. Half a star for me. It could have been fun, but again, nothing is getting settled. It's a rough night of matches. This is what I'm talking about. What I said earlier, they don't seem to value the go home the night after. Like, this is our march to sold out. Like, these guys aren't even on the pay-per-view. You had Jericho. We're doing Malenko Dragon tomorrow night. Those are getting cut short for this to go 2 minutes and be a bunch of bullshit. Where Regal, a guy you clearly don't care much about right now, and Jacques Rougeau, like, it's a stupid. This didn't need to happen. This could have been Malenko Dragon 8 minutes instead, and when you factor it all in, and get you more hyped for the clash with maybe a DQ finish or a brawl finish or something to set that up. Instead, we get this as like a throwaway, and it feels like, okay, everyone always rips on Vince Russo in 1999 and 3-minute matches, but, like, right now we're kind of in that phase right here on this Nitro. Like, we get 3 minutes. Nothing's getting any time to breathe or tell a story.
Yeah, agreed. Sold out promo airs, and then we get our Lee Marshall Road Report.
Yes, he's in Milwaukee. Talks about Lou Alcindor and the Packers, and tomorrow's Clash of the Champions, where they'll offer sauerkraut and bratwurst. So don't you miss it.
Says don't do it. Don't sample it. Kevin Sullivan versus Chris Benoit. Now Sullivan makes his entrance. Benoit attacks him from behind right there in the hallway. And then they have a big fight. Like, they go up into the stands. The crowd's going nuts. They go into the concourse. They go into the bathroom again. And Bobby yells out, only on Nitro will you see something like this. Tony calls it the most bitter feud the sport has ever seen. While they're in the bathroom, Sullivan slams the door onto Benoit's fingers. They use the plexiglass above the urinal and slam that into each other. Dillinger takes another spill when he gets in between them. And there was like 4 or 5 guys that were just, like, in the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
But when they go to exit and then go back, it is a wild scene.
Yeah,
like, security has lost control.
The cameraman can't get out of the bathroom. He's like stuck behind them.
Cameraman can't get out of the bathroom. Woman can't get to to the wrestler. She's yelling to move. God damn it!
She's got her shoe off, like
Yeah.
waving her shoe.
She the way she yelled that kind of sounded like AC Green when he has OJ in the car. It's like, you know who this is, goddamn.
AC Cowling, you mean? Not
Oh
AC
yeah,
Green.
AC
Poor AC Green.
not AC Green. Yeah, AC Collins. You know who I am, goddamn. But yeah, she has her shoe off. It is wild. So then we come to the wide shot in the arena. We see Benoit getting kicked down the steps. They go into the entranceway and are walking to the ring, and somebody throws a huge beer, like a full beer, that gets thrown and splashes onto the camera. A fan throws another one. So then they get into the ring, and we call for the bell after all that. The match starts. Sullivan tries to put Benoit on the tree of woe, but he bounces out of that. Some stiff chops, a low blow from Sullivan, and an atomic drop. They hit head to head, and Woman's on the apron arguing. And then while that's going on, Jimmy Hart gives Sullivan the ring bell. Benoit goes to the top, goes for the diving headbutt, hits the ring bell.
That was
It's just a
nasty.
six spot. Like you can hear it. It looks off. I mean, it's just nasty. And then Jimmy helps Sullivan pin Benoit. So as an abbreviated match, and I think you have to put the brawl in with it. Like, I mean, it was an intense, crazy, out of control fight again between these two. Again, it's a little weird that this is right before they fight the next night.
Right. I'm kind of okay with it here because it's like, I don't know, that's like this blood feud. It was signed for Chicago. They added it from Milwaukee. This feels different than like a 4-minute exhibition between Malenko and Dragon that doesn't really do anything. This at least is like, this war can't be contained in any arena.
Okay. I wonder though how many times, because I mean, obviously they'll be fighting a lot more going forward, a few more times. So I wonder if we ever get like
Diminishing
dwindling
returns.
return, diminishing returns. But as of this, I went 3.5. I loved it.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see where it goes from here. I went 3.25. Good wild match. Great pace, pure madness, sick finish with that bump at the end. I like that Sullivan wins here to set up tomorrow night because it feels like Benoit always beats him. So, like, I'm okay with that here. And I mean, it's crazy how long this feud goes on. Like, you remember the Bash of the Beach 96 match. And I would bet not too many people remember that it really went on like this much longer beyond that. Like, it goes until the summer, right? So it's like almost a full year, which is
Bash at the
crazy.
Beach is a retirement match, I think. Yep. Come back from break. NWO music starts up. It's Nash, Bischoff, Ted, Six, and the B team. Really, everybody at Sub Hall and Hogan. And they invade the announce booth. They scurry off the announcers. And then the three individuals that sit down to start us are Ted, Kevin Nash, and Eric Bischoff. And this is another fabulous night of commentary from one Kevin Nash, where he sits down right away, says, "I'm not looking sweet or what?" Leads us into our next match, which is Carl Ouellette versus Jim Duggan. Nash says that Carl looks like he hasn't missed too many Labots, has he?
That was great. That's such a great line.
And then O Canada gets faded out. Out comes Duggan with his WCW flag. He's wearing like gold boots with purple trunks for the WCW colors.
He's
So
all in.
what a shill. And then Eric makes some programming changes here. So he says he wants to give Chono a tune-up. So he's giving him the match versus Dave Taylor. He says he's subbing in Psychosis, but as I explained, that was never going to be the match. And then he also gives Rick Steiner the night off and inserts Hall. I like that Eric inserted this, saying this is the first time Hall's wrestling on Nitro.
Yeah.
So I thought that was good.
He's gonna take on Booker. I like how he goes, "This is a lousy format."
Yeah, he said, like, the way this is, he calls it a lousy show, the way it's currently planned. So there we go, crapping on that. The match itself is whatever. Like, Jock comes out to distract Duggan. That allows Carl to take over. But Nash says Nash is talking about the Benoit and Sullivan thing, and he says, "What's this woman thing that's been going on?" Says, take care of things like him and just tell the woman that the money's on the dresser. So
Yeah,
there you
basically
go.
it says he pays for his women, so he doesn't have to deal with any bullshit. Basically what he says.
Um, now the and this finish again very perplexing. So the Steiners come out because Jock, I guess, is out there. The Steiners come out, they beat up Jock, and then Scott clubs Carl, so he interferes on Duggan's behalf. Duggan, of course, does the roll up tape fist that he wins. Even Nash calls out how ridiculous it is. He says, "Oh, he injured his hand, tapes himself up, and is miraculously able to get the victory." This was garbage as a match. I went a quarter star. This made no sense from a booking standpoint.
No.
Like the only redeeming thing is Nash's commentary.
Yep.
From a booking standpoint, this sucks because like the Steiners are cheating to help Duggan win,
And
and
it's not
it's
like who lets an NWO guy. So
that's
it's
what I
not
was
like
about to say. It's
yeah,
against these lame, amazing French Canadians. So who cares?
right.
Like,
Yeah,
why
we
are
haven't
they
had
so
any
concerned?
Steiner's Amazing French Canadians feud that they're trying to get revenge for. Yeah, like maybe you could say, oh, they're trying to help Duggan because Duggan's pro WCW, but again, he's not like this should have been like Vincent or Wall Street against Duggan, and then the
Yep.
Steiners come out. Like that would have made more sense than what we
Yep.
get. But yeah, the matches. This is one of the messiest cards we've had with Nitro as far as in ring. So yeah, half star. The highlights easily Nash. Bischoff fucks up at the beginning too when the Canadians are coming out. Bischoff says, "Oh, we got tag action next." It's just Roulette coming out. Bischoff says, "Who cares what they're saying?" When Roulette's start to sing and talk and
Oh,
stuff. So
Canada. Yeah.
a lot of fat jokes about Roulette. So I mean, whatever. Yeah, it's the Nash comedy hour, which is great, but the match is pointless, just like every other match tonight.
Yeah. Back from break, it's Chono versus Squire Dave Taylor. Eric says Chono's the newest member, or is it Savage? And then they come back from break. They give the narration of Diamond Dallas Page
Hmm.
and him kind of turning. They add some lines, but basically, like it boils down to him made a bad choice. He'll pay for it. He was a dummy, etc. Um, with this match, Squire David Taylor versus Masahiro Chono, they send Nick Patrick down to referee. Chono gets the end of the Nash starts talking about the Japanese stock market. Then he asks Squire David Taylor is Sherlock Holmes. Ted gets in a good line that says he looks like he's going fox hunting.
That was funny. Is that Sherlock Holmes?
So, oh,
Bischoff talks about buying New Japan as well. And they said DiBiase says he could buy anything.
there
And
we
that's
go.
where we get the stock market joke. But
So Chono offers a handshake. Taylor refuses, then turns around and takes off his jacket, and Chono kicks him. And Ted says, "There's the NWO kicking in there." They laugh about that. Flying shoulder block by Chono. Taylor does get a drop kick in. Eric shields the Miss NWO contest, says they're getting, great receptions all around, are coming in to that contest itself. They brawl on the outside a little bit, and then when they get back in, Chono gives the inverted atomic drop, the Mafia kick, and the SDF, which Nash actually calls impressively enough to pick up the win. So another filler matchup here. Again, I think this was just to give Chono,
which
some
again,
screen
at least
time.
Chono's on the friggin' pay per view. Like that makes this at least makes sense to me that they're giving Chono the tune up and let him go over strong before Saturday like Jericho did. Like so, this would at least made sense.
Yep, star and a half for me.
Yeah, it's still nonsense, but I feel like the 3 in a week is a lot for them. Like the Nitro, the Clash, and the pay per view within 6 days. This Nitro almost feels a little mailed in. It feels like the heat and the formula, they're kind of just leaning on the formula they have to carry the show. But it felt like it was a lot for them to stack together. All these matches to Nitro, another 2 hours of the Clash to be compelling. 3-hour pay-per-view that's going to be this unique, different concept. Like, there was a lot to take on in this 1 week, especially with Chicago. They're trying to make it a big deal. It almost would have been better if this was just like a throwaway Nitro, but I get that they're trying to make it like this huge week of programming from WCW in this giant month. So I think they struggled a bit piecing it all together. So I'm going to start in a quarter. Again, at least Chono's on the pay-per-view. It makes sense seeing him here, but it's just another Express Line coverage match.
Scott Hall versus Booker T. Big pop for Scott. Nash mentions that when they opened this building, they had a match together referencing SummerSlam 1994. And then Eric gets in a big shots fired where he calls the Rumble a mess of the pay-per-view and then begs people to stop wearing NWO merch to the opposition because he doesn't want to be giving viewers the wrong idea. So there we go. Then Nash starts crapping on the hotline and says, I can't tell you tonight, but if you call me tomorrow for $149 a minute, I'll let you know. That was hilarious.
Well, he goes, people are sleeping with other people inside the NWO. Call, find out.
Yeah. I'll tell you tomorrow on the hotline. Nash is talking about, so toothpick throw from Hall, a slap from Booker. Nick Patrick's the referee here. Nash says that's poor sportsmanship on Booker's part. Nice takeover by Hall into an arm bar, and he kind of slaps around Booker T. And then this is the good part of the NWO we talked about where they push Hall versus Luger tomorrow night on the Clash. Eric says, all kidding aside, this is someone you can't take lightly. He's on a roll, etc. So that was good. Leg kick by Booker. Eric surmises that this may be tougher than he thought, like for Hall to pick up the victory. Nash says, he's just getting warmed up. Booker then hits the spinneroonie and the kick, and he's getting a big reaction now from the fans. Fans were fired up for that. Scott Hall was able to catch him into a nice fall-away slam. Eric lets us know that 17,000 paid for this edition of Nitro, which is
a little
great.
dig with the paid, yeah.
That was nice. I enjoyed that, but it's an impressive.
It's legit,
crowd. Yeah.
But I love that he mentions the paid as a shot at the Rumble. I love the wording too early, like that mess of a pay-per-view. Like, it must have been fun to see. Like, I'm guessing these guys just probably will watch that shit together. Like, they'd probably get together and watch WWF pay-per-views as a group or whatever, just shit on it.
So Booker gets a splash and a count, and it's an obvious slow count. And Nash is funny where he says, "Oh, that was a bit of a quick count there by Nick Patrick." So Booker starts to argue with Nick Patrick. Hall takes over and is able to hit the outsider's edge for the win, which also that looked a little shaky for a minute too. It wasn't quite as bad as the Farouk Dominator, but
Bagwell came out.
Bagwell comes out to like basically distract Sherry. So they're chatting, but a improved role.
Riggs comes out as well. Yeah,
I guess an improved role for Bagwell here that he's kind of.
Big upgrade from the males.
Right. 2.25. I went for the match. It was fine. It was again short though. Like this was probably 3 minutes.
I liked it quite a bit. I mean, Bischoff and Nash are hilarious, especially Nash. Again, shitting on the pay-per-view, the Gene stuff, who's sleeping with who. But it's fun for what we got. It was short. It was angle stuff, but Hall's mega over. And this is a good spotlight for Booker. I wonder if this is. I'm curious when they started to picture Booker as a singles guy with potential. Because when is it? Is it before next year at all? Like, is it in '97 at any point? It feels like
it
starts.
They're in the Spring Stampede,
right?
Match with the infamous
gap.
So I mean that might have been a trial run.
I'm curious when they started to see something in him.
I mean, '98. He's certainly that's when he's full-fledged. Like
that's early too, like January, February. So
like he does the stuff with Martel, then he's in the
Benoit,
at Finley and all that.
So I'm curious when in '97 if it starts, because by '98, like you said, like he's ramped up. So it was fun. I mean, Hall's mega over. The buzz and chaos. I actually went 2 3/4. I just like the whole package around this. I thought it was entertaining, and I like Hall. I mean, I like watching him work, and it was cool. Like you said, they made it a good job, feel like a spectacle. It's his first ever Nitro match. So then we get the real hotline ad. The NWO hotline
Yeah.
paid ad, $159 a minute for the NWO hotline.
Our main event is Stevie Ray versus
You,
Lex Luger.
do you think Nash knew that was coming, that ad, and that's why he did, or do you think it was just a
No,
coincidence that he mimicked the hotline?
it was a good coincidence if
Yeah.
it was. Either way, it worked out. So it's Stevie Ray versus Lex Luger. When Stevie Ray comes out, Nash says, "Didn't this guy just get beat up?" Oh, it's the other one. So there we go.
Oh my God.
Nash says he's more excited for Sold Out since his third Christmas. Then when Luger comes out, he says, "With a body like that, you can't have too much fun. I would have to give up too many things I enjoy, like a pop top." So that was a nice line again. Now they're talking about the stuff with Savage, and they're still playing up the Sting's NWO because he says, like, hey, Savage is like with Sting's mentality that, if you can't beat him, you might as well join him.
Yep.
So they say Savage came to his senses, all this stuff. Nick Patrick and Luger start arguing, and Stevie attacks. Patrick has a great smile on his face when Stevie Ray attacks him here. Stevie beats up Luger down in the corner. Ted bails here to, I guess,
prep Hogan. Yeah,
Yeah.
Bischoff says to go prep Hogan up.
Yeah. Six hops on the mic now. Luger gets sent into the guardrail. There's a lot of people getting sent into the guardrail on this edition of Nitro. Sherry gives the boots to Luger on the outside. But then once he rolls back in, he's able to pretty quickly make his comeback with the power slam and the torture rack. The torture rack is an interesting it's an interesting finish where as soon as he puts Stevie up in the rack, Nick Patrick calls for the bell.
Yeah.
So Stevie doesn't really submit. He just calls for the bell. And Luger gets mad, and Nash is like, "What, a win enough's not good for you? You got to get a perfect score too, and all this." And then him and Six have a little bit of back and forth, and they're like, "Hey, we know this guy for a long time. We know he's a real prima donna in the back and all that."
Yeah. It's Nash. I'm sick of Luger. Six, yeah, we know him from way back.
So star and a half for this one. It was what it was.
A lot of talk about the Clash, and they keep saying the NWO is going to make a big statement, make a presence tomorrow. So they're really trying to sell you on watching the Clash because there's going to be some big NWO thing going down. Like they really hype that. When they're near the guardrail, Nash goes, "Oh, it looks like WCW is tossing out Horseman merch for free to get it on camera." No, it's funny. Just a match. The commentary was great again. I mean, they've really carried the back end of the show. 2.25 for the match for me. I enjoyed it, but it was really the commentary is such a good package here, whatever they're on.
We have a very quick Hogan promo here to end. Like he comes out with 5 minutes left, so he just has Ted and Vincent accompanying him. Nash calls him the world's richest beach bum. He rips his shirt and poses. He says everyone wanted to see the Pythons.
Well,
Nash
did you see too when they're coming down? There's a fan that has an old WWF magazine on the poster,
DiBiase.
And it's DiBiase. And Nash goes, "Look at DiBiase's feathered hair from back in the day or whatever."
Yeah, the fan had crossed out where the WWF logo on the magazine in the upper left hand corner. He'd written NWO.
Yeah,
which was cool. Yeah, that was a cool sign that Hogan picked up. And then Hogan, I didn't understand this. He talks about when we hit the Windy City last night, bruh. The people thought it was a 747 coming into O'Hare. So basically talking about how large he is. He calls Giant a big, fat, pimple-infested crybaby. Says he'll bust him up real bad. Ted laid down some heavy dinero down on Hogan to ensure that the job gets done. He said he met with Giant's mommy and told him what a good boy he was when he was using the Giant. And then we have this finish here where Giant comes rushing out. As soon as Giant comes out on commentary, they're like, "Oh, go get him, guys." Nash says, "I would go, but I got a gas bubble." So he stays in the booth. So they basically set out all the cronies and the troops. Security's also holding Giant back. This is where Doug Dillinger takes his third spill of the night as Giant kind of rushes the ring as we fade to black. So this felt again kind of abbreviated, I
Yeah.
would say. I mean, I don't think there was much more they needed to do for this feud, but I mean, I guess Hogan wanted to be on the big show, but I mean, a pretty easy night for him. Like I said, this was literally a 5-minute promo. I
Yeah.
mean, it was fine for what it was. It was just very short.
I'm guessing they said whatever time is left due to the Savage stuff, the rest of the card they said was filled with Hogan, like at the end of the night, probably. Um, Six on commentary says all of Hollywood is copying Hogan's beard, which was funny.
Oh yeah,
Hogan says he met Giant at a Chicago basketball game as well. He
right,
worked that in there.
right.
Yeah, the gas bubble thing was funny too. But that's it. I mean, kind of a fine ending to a weird show. To me, it just felt like they were killing a couple hours until the Clash and sold out. I thought it was actually a waste of a hot crowd in the big city overall. It was a weird night. Not a lot of Giant till the end. I can't even say they did a ton of sold out hype either. Like, I don't know. It was just it was just too much. I think the Clash should have been a different week from sold out, and maybe they could have hyped it differently. But it felt like they were putting all their eggs to the next night, to the next night. So it felt like this really just felt like almost like a pre-show to the Clash in many ways.
Gotcha. Yeah, it was. I agree. It was a little bit of a, I would say, a helter skelter type of Nitro.
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, look, even this Nitro, as we'll get to our words, it's still very good.
I mean, it had one great segment, and then it had a really good brawl, so that helps it.
Yeah,
But
I mean, it's still like
it
good.
had
Like,
shaky moments.
it's just like the match, the setup of the matches and the booking were very questionable, and I think they could have just made a few tweaks and made this a much better show. But what really saved it for me was the commentary in the back end. Like Nash was so good, it carried that whole back hour. It got me that's what got me the most excited for the sold out was like them on commentary. It was really good.
Yeah.
It stinks that we know Nash won't be on the booth for sold out, but
Right.
all right, match of the night. Obviously Benoit Sullivan.
Yeah, that's a hidden gem for us.
Yeah. Moment, Savage's return.
Yeah, Savage Sting segment.
All right. I want Nash for MVP. I mean, he was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about Nash. I ended up going with Randy Savage. I just thought, like, when he jumps the rail, he has kind of that, like, unhinged edge that is captivating. So, did a good job in his segment.
I've been blackballed.
He said the A word.
Stroke. Shots fired was Bischoff shitting on the Rumble, and then the paid Nitro attendance.
Yeah.
Road report Milwaukee. I didn't catch any dropped angles or debuts.
No.
Okay. So I ended up giving this the same score as Raw. I just went 6.5. I thought they were both very good. They both had a great segment with a big moment. They both had like a really good match, and then the rest of the shows were kind of you could argue Nitro maybe it was more because it's longer, but I think Nash on commentary for me carried that second hour. When you look at that card, if they didn't do that Nash on commentary, I think this would have been a much weaker show because that back end is so slow in ring, but he's just so funny. It was almost like a classic Gorilla Jesse, Gorilla Bobby type deal at an MSG house show where it's like, okay, these are like a bunch of 1.5 star matches, but it's just like these great announcers riffing that you just want to listen to, so you don't give a shit.
Right.
That's what it felt like to me with Nash on commentary.
I went lower. I went 6. Thought it was above average, but also had some problems as we talked about. But like I said, one great segment and a really good match, so it couldn't go that low. And the commentary does help. The commentary, I think, discussing it has made it better than when I was watching it. I mean, I was entertained, but I was like, man, there's a lot that's kind of just feels very fillerish.
Right.
And the commentary did help from an entertainment standpoint.
All right, so combo awards. I mean, for the first time since November 25th, sounds like Raw's our better show.
Raw's better show.
Yep. So that's only their second one since the gun night. They won the gun night. They won the night after Survivor Series, and then this. So every 7 or so, they pick up a win maybe here. No, they won a little bit more. Like they won to go home to Havoc night, and then that was their first in a while. Nitro had beaten the shit out of them since. They won May 27th, which is the week after Hall, right? And then they won. Oh no, was that was the whole night? Okay, so Raw won the whole night. Then they didn't win again till this is for us. They didn't win again till October 21st.
Yeah,
that was all WCW, including pay-per-view, that whole time. Then they won again on the gun night, November 4th, November 25th, and then nothing till now. So
Yeah, I mean that to me that checks out. Like
And only
Raw,
Survivor Series for pay-per-view.
Raw was
So yeah.
pretty good heading into Mania when you had Babyface Hogan that sucked, and then April was whatever. Neither show was great, but some of those nitros
Since
were
Hall's
good.
debut, WWF has only won 4 times, and that includes pay-per-view and TV.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Best match, Benoit Sullivan.
yep,
All right. For best moment, do you want? Are we gonna go with the Heart or with the Hall or with the Savage?
this is the big one. I mean, I think this is the debate.
I think
I
it's
think
Heart. I think
I
if
think
you're,
for Impact, it's
yeah,
Hart and Austin.
and if you're picking Raw to win, to me, like that makes that the better segment.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I could see the argument the other way though, because I think
Mm.
the only reason it's close from a
Savage.
Nitro standpoint is the Savage Sting stuff. If you,
Yeah.
it depends how much you weight the commentary,
I
but
just think they didn't follow up at it at all. You know what I mean? So it's like the
yeah,
Brett
we'll
was a
see.
cool
I
through
do.
line.
I
They
feel like they do follow up on it though the next week.
No, I mean right now, like even that night,
Oh,
it's like
yeah.
that's kind of it, you know.
Well,
Whereas
they
the Hart and
reset
Austin thing kind of
they're
carries
gone.
the whole
Yeah,
episode.
yeah. Okay.
Um, Nitro clearly better commentary.
Yeah, I mean,
Raw
so
was good. JR was
Raw's
great on
commentary
Raw.
was good,
Yeah.
but yeah, Nitro.
If it wasn't for Nash, I would say maybe tilted toward JR, but the Nash back end was too good to not go with. So who's your star overall?
I mean, this is
We're all
where
over
we
the
split
place.
too. I mean, it's either Hart or Austin, I think. So I don't have a problem giving it to Has
I
Austin
thought Austin
won?
was.
Has
Huh?
Austin won any? I mean, I'm
He
sure
won
he
the.
won November 4th.
He won 2 in a row. The 28th and the 4th. The
Yeah,
28th was the backstage stuff. That might be it. Maybe he won July 22nd, King of the Ring, obviously.
or just give it to Austin.
Yeah,
Then.
yeah, he was great. The jackass thing makes it worth it alone. And then ratings winner, obviously Nitro.
Yeah, and it was interesting ratings because you'd think coming off Rumble, they might have a little bit of a bump. You know, I will say this. I don't think we talked about this. This is a curious decision on the Raw side. No Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier. It's like to me that's a big shock that he. I mean, you're in his home state. He just won the world title. The only thing I can think of is that he was wicked sick, and they were just like, "Go home and
Yeah.
rest." I mean, that's got to be it. We'll see if he's on next week. Because is that last hour show still from Beaumont?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll see if he's on next week or not.
I think
Um,
they said he was
yeah.
already.
So
So,
then it's even more curious. Or at least do a promo or something. I mean, they showed his entrance, I guess, but
yeah.
yeah, it's surprising that he wasn't on. Maybe they figured Brett Austin would carry it enough. But.
So, I mean, Raw's in this funk where on January 6th, it was a 2.1. January 13th, the previous week, it was 2.3. Tonight, they're 2.2. So they're in the same area, but they didn't get any bump at all from the Rumble. They actually went down.
Yeah.
Uh, it's negligible, but I would consider that a little disappointing. But again, like they haven't been above a 2.3 since November 18th, so they've been sliding. And then the next week I'll just spoil it. They're 2.2 again, so they're in that
Right.
range for a
They're
while.
just stuck. Yeah, it's disappointing because I mean, not even the pay per view, whatever it is, it should be the talk of Austin screwing everyone and winning the Rumble should have been enough to tune in the next night to see what they do. But I think WCW's done a good job of hyping the shit out of this week. For as much as I'm crapping on it, them doing the 3 shows, like it's been a big talking point now for weeks for them. Like the week of the 20th, we got Nitro in Chicago, the Clash in Milwaukee, and sold out. So I think there was just a lot of hype on this Nitro as well to tune in. So they
Yeah, and
probably, yeah,
I mean, there's always a lag with this stuff too.
yeah.
Like, I mean, like
But that one specifically,
creatively,
you'd think the word of Austin winning the Rumble would have been a lot to get people to tune in. You know,
maybe, but it's still. I mean, he wasn't mainstream at
right?
all.
No,
So
but just some wrestling fans you think would tune in. But I get it. Like I said, WCW had hyped this show up big time, so I could see why Nitro fans are more inclined just to stick with Nitro. And then you open with Savage coming out, so it probably felt like okay, we're staying here.
yeah, Raw Nitro went up from a 3.4 the prior week to 3.7.
Okay,
So
so big bump.
really
Yeah,
good
so
number
they
for
did. They
him.
hyped the shit out of the show. They really did. Also, maybe the fallout from the Robin Hood stuff.
Yeah, Robin Hood actually got a good number the
Yeah.
prior week with that. So 3.7 matches their highest rating ever.
Oh wow. Okay.
That was, I mean, there's the two that are unopposed. So if you
Right.
throw that out on a head-to-head night, they've done 3.7 now. November 11th was 3.7. September 9th and September 16th were both 3.7. So they've done 3.7 4 times now. They still haven't been able to eclipse it. They
I'm guessing
will.
off of this show, maybe not right off of this show. I don't know. Next
Yeah,
week.
they will in a couple weeks, but that's February 10th, so that's when
That's
Raw is
unopposed, I think.
unopposed
Yeah.
too. So it's a couple. It'll be a couple of months before they beat that. Oh, let me look. It may even be a long time. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, if you're watching this Nitro, they get the big audience. I wouldn't say this is super compelling enough to, to come back, based on what I mean. It was a good show, but not like, oh, I can't wait for next week based on this show.
8-4. That's the 100th Nitro.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the big one. They beat it then.
Okay. Okay. Wow. So we're capped on both shows really for a bit.
We're I mean, well, Nitro. I mean, Nitro. Raw starts kicking up.
Yeah.
So we'll start tracking Raw a couple weeks after Mania. They have some pretty good ratings that we'll see if that's their highest rating
So they
since
get some hot
whenever.
shows in there. Yeah.
hmm Yeah.
Okay.
So I think the main thing now is the gap, and again, the gap on this show was 1.5, like
Right.
between Raw and Nitro.
All right. Well, we got a gap of 2 weeks. We'll be back then on a Monday to talk to you about the Clash of the Champions. So it'll be a WCW solo show. And then we got another WCW solo show a month from today. We'll be covering Sold Out. And then we'll be back to the Raw versus Nitro in 6 weeks. So a lot to cover here. We're in an exciting time, like we talked about. We're really pumped for it to see the more excitement between both shows and not just kind of Nitro carrying the ball for us on the show. Check out everything we have to offer the North South Connection. Again, be sure to subscribe on here on YouTube if you're watching this way, or subscribe on any podcast app as well. Follow us on social media. Leave a comment, leave a like. We really appreciate it. Until then, that's Chad. I'm JT. Smell the napalm. We'll talk to you in a couple weeks.